What's up, everybody? Thanks as always for supporting the show. It would mean a lot to me if you would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button to the Hoops Tonight YouTube channel, and then follow me on social media on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter so you guys don't miss any of our content over the course of this season. All right, let's talk some basketball. And I'm going to ask you what the percentage chance you think is that they are Lakers 2 weeks from now after the deadline. That first name. What is the percentage chance that Dejounte Murray is a Laker in 2 weeks?
What is the percentage chance? I would say 45%. So right under that 50% mark. I think naturally you have to be a bit more conservative when projecting trades. This was a deal that I reported on was very close 2 weeks ago. And the framework of that deal was D'Angelo Russell, Jalen Hood-Schifino, the 2029 first round pick and additional draft capital, be it they're still trying to figure out, is that going to be a pick swap? Is that going to be a second round pick? But that would be, that was the framework of that deal. And part of the pushback on Atlanta's end was they want Austin Reeves if they're going to do a 1-for-1 deal, which the Lakers obviously aren't interested in doing. And then the second wave of pushback was, okay, well, we don't want D'Lo, so you have to find a third team to facilitate this. So the Lakers over the last couple of weeks have been canvassing the league, trying to find a potential third team, most likely a lottery team that would be looking to take on D'Lo's salary. Lakers give up a second round pick or maybe a couple to kind of appease them, maybe get back another player and add a couple pieces, potentially expanding the deal. But that's been happening. Those talks got really close a couple weeks ago. Since then, they've stalled, but the Lakers have been canvassing the league. So from my understanding, Dejounte is their top priority. That is the guy that they've targeted as someone who could be a better fit next to Austin Reeves in the backcourt. He has regressed defensively since his San Antonio days, but he's still a better defender than D'Angelo Russell. Yes, you take a little bit, you take a solid hit in the shooting and playmaking department, but he does have that downhill verve and athleticism and speed that the team has been lacking since losing Dennis Schroeder last year. So I think looking at Murray, he's got 4 more years. His extension kicks in next season. He does have a $13 million trade kicker, which could be spread out over the next 4 years. So his salary is a little bit higher than it appears on paper. But I think it's someone who, late 20s, he can grow with the AD Austin core. I think he does complement Austin pretty well. And the Lakers have identified more so the perimeter speed and athleticism at the guard spot as the need that they want to improve upon. I think you and I are in agreement. It's probably more of a 3-and-D wing is probably the bigger need, but those guys are hard to come by. If you do swap D'Lo out for a 3-and-D wing, you are potentially creating a different hole at the point guard spot. You're not replacing that playmaking and that level of just ball handling and command that he's had over the offense recently. So I think they view it as we are trading some strengths for different strengths, but it is just a more natural fit with Dejounte and Austin. And then on top of that, you have this guy now for 4 years, whereas D'Lo has a player option, and that kind of puts you in an interesting predicament depending on how the rest of his season goes. So I would say Dejounte, wouldn't put it above 50% just because with these situations, once you have talks get to the 11th, the 1 yard line, 5 yard line, whatever, and they fall through, there's always the risk that they don't get back to that point again. But again, from everything I've heard, Lakers are prioritizing Dejounte, and therefore I would say about 45% feels right to me.
Yeah, to be clear, I like the Dejounte Murray move in the sense that it obviously makes the Lakers better. We don't have to galaxy brain this. To me, the D'Angelo Russell has a ton of playmaking value in the regular season. But I do think that there's a pretty extensive history that shows that when the athleticism and physicality goes up a level, D'Angelo Russell's impact as a primary on-ball guy goes down a level. Once you turn into a guy who's working off the ball a lot, there's a diminishing return compared to like a really skilled offensive player versus a kind of skilled offensive player. There's a diminishing return versus an on-ball role, right? Even when it comes to the Austin D'Lo debate, there's no doubt that Austin's not capable of having a 27-7 stretch over a 6-game stretch like this, where he's just picking teams apart as this primary offensive initiator. And D'Lo's been awesome over that stretch. That said, like, when we get to the postseason, it is going to be more LeBron and AD. It is going to be more posting up and more in the mud, kind of like bully ball type of basketball. And in that off-ball role, even though D'Lo provides a ton of value there, he's been one of the better spot-up players in the league this year, his value, there is a diminishing return there. Dejounte Murray absolutely can play alongside Austin Reeves to close playoff games. I have no worries about that whatsoever. Dejounte Murray is a better defensive player than people remember him being from his time with the Hawks. And, even last night in the Warriors game, like in that first half in particular, did a really good job on Steph and was a big part of getting him off to a rough shooting start. He's got quickness. He's got length in particular is a big one for him that helps a lot. And it's more just about whether or not he can kind of recapture that effort and energy. But the big thing for me is Dejounte can just beat people off the dribble. Like, he just can't. There was a play in the first half of the Warriors game last night where he's coming up the right side and he's got Andrew Wiggins on him in a straight ISO, and he just hits him with the right to left crossover and toasts him off the dribble and draws a foul at the basket. It's like, there's nobody on the Lakers that can do that this year. There's literally not a single guy on the roster. Like, even LeBron, it's way more bully ball. Even with Anthony Davis, it's way more bully ball. Austin and D'Lo need screens. Like, there's a huge value that comes there. Dejounte Murray is having a much better shooting season than he has in the rest of his career. A lot of people say outlier, but I would say that in my time watching the Hawks the last 2 years, Dejounte's gotten a lot better playing off the ball, just as he's had to play next to Trae Young. So, like, I like Dejounte Murray, but I prefer Bruce Brown. And I'm going to break it down, but I want to start by talking more about the realistic nature of that type of deal. So what is the percentage chance that Bruce Brown is a Laker in 2 weeks?
I'd say 20%. So a significant drop off. I think there's a couple of things there. One, the Lakers have had interest in Bruce Brown dating back to last summer. I reported on it where there's about a 48-hour window before he ended up signing with Indiana, where the Lakers were confident he was going to sign with them for the non-taxpayer mid-level exception, because at that point that had been his reported market, and he was weighing the Lakers, the Mavericks, the Knicks. There were several teams interested in him at that $11-12 million price point. But all of a sudden, a few hours before the free agency starts, Indiana decides to back up the Brinks truck and offer him this interesting 2-year, $43-44 million deal with a team option on the second year. So really, it's a ballooned 1-year deal, and he ends up signing that, and now they're able to flip that ultimately for Pascal Siakam and really improve their roster. With Bruce Brown, it's an interesting situation just because he does have a team option for $23 million next season, and on paper, probably not worth that amount of money. But if you don't pick that up, you are risking him, potentially leaving for nothing, and then you just traded an asset in D'Lo or Rui for Bruce Brown, and then you're kind of just losing that asset this upcoming offseason. So I think for the Lakers, there's definitely interest in him. In my opinion, he had his best series of the championship run against the Lakers. So they saw up close and personal like what he could do, but just his versatility offensively, functioned basically as Denver's backup point guard for a lot of that run. But as we know, in Brooklyn and Detroit, he's played small ball center at times, so he can really play 1 through 5 in some regards, and just imagine slotting him next to LeBron and AD, and you could go bigger with Rui if they're able to keep him in that deal, or Vando, or you could go smaller and Bruce can guard up. So like, you just have so much versatility adding him into the rotation. They haven't really had a guy like this, maybe since Kyle Kuzma off the top of my head. Like, that's maybe but different players, of course, but like just that versatility to do several different types of things, both offensively and defensively from the wing spot. It's been a while for them. So I think Bruce is going to have a lot of league-wide interest. He is, I think, a lot of teams, like I look at Philly, I think he would be a great fit there. So I think there could be more of a bidding war ultimately for Bruce Brown as a temporary win now move. And once you get into a bidding war, the Lakers don't have the assets really to outbid most teams. So I think whereas Dejounte, Atlanta wants essentially 2 first-round picks. The Lakers so far have really been the only suitor interested in giving up that much, with JHS kind of counting as a first-round pick in that scenario. So I think with Bruce, it's just going to be so much league-wide interest that I don't know if the Lakers can outbid a Dallas or a Philadelphia or New York once it really comes down to offering your best offer.
I think also it's a very non-Laker thing to do. Like, I mean, go for the big name or go for the guy who's the dirty work guy. Like, it's a very
Sure.
non-Laker thing to do. And that's why I'm with you. Like, I'm super skeptical about the realistic nature of a Bruce Brown to LA move. Why I like it is really simple to me. It comes down to like some of my core basketball beliefs. Like, right now, I think the Lakers are being hurt by something that is a consistent issue that we see around the league, which is it doesn't really matter how much athleticism and size you have in the front court at like power forward and center if you don't have that in the backcourt to complement it. I mean, we literally see this with Milwaukee. It's like, okay, here you go. You've got Giannis and Brook Lopez. Well, they literally can't protect the paint because they've got 2 of the worst point of attack defenders in the league and 2 smaller players at the 1 and the 2. This is a big part of why they went after Terry Rozier. They have this real athleticism and force at the power forward spot and at the center spot, but they don't really have it at the guard spot. So they go after a guy like Terry Rozier. Like, Dejounte Murray to me is fast and he is long, but what he's not is strong. He doesn't bring a real force to the position. To me, Bruce Brown is one of those guys, in the same way that Alex Caruso did in the 2020 season. When you put him next to LeBron James and Anthony Davis at the same time in a playoff setting where you're getting engaged LeBron, there's a certain amount of like wave after wave of like unbelievable force and power at every position group. I think Bruce Brown at the 2 makes it so that Austin and Torian as your 1 and 3 is no longer an athleticism issue. I think there's a Dejounte Murray scenario where he comes in and he looks more or less like Atlanta Hawks Dejounte Murray, and he gets you 20-something points a game and has some defensive moments, but he's kind of iffy. I think there's a question mark as to whether or not Darvin and LeBron and AD will be able to look at Dejounte and be like, look, dude, we need you to be one of the best perimeter defenders in the league. That's what we need from you. Whereas I think if they looked at Bruce Brown and asked that of him, he'd be like, that's what I do in this league. That's what I've always done in this league. Of course I will do that for you guys. You know what I mean? And I think there's a lot of upside there. So like when I look sheerly from the perspective of the basketball, then when you add the simple fact that in the playoffs, there's going to be a lot of LeBron James and Anthony Davis with the ball. So all of a sudden that all of those dirty work things and that off-ball cutting and screening and stuff becomes so much more important than in the regular season. Like, there's no doubt that there's going to be games. Dejounte turns out to be a Laker. There's going to be games in March where he has 35 points and you win and it looks great. And that's amazing. But I do think there's something to be said about, we all agree the Lakers aren't winning the title unless LeBron and AD get near the 2020 level. And if they do that, it's more important to have a Bruce Brown than it is to have a Dejounte Murray. Dejounte would help a struggling LeBron and AD, but a struggling LeBron and AD aren't winning any titles to begin with. So that's kind of like my reasoning behind it. I am just a big believer in really good 2-way role players around LeBron James and Anthony Davis, and I always have been.